Good morning to you. I'm Vicki Wynn.
And I'm Christine Romans. Joe and Savannah are on assignment. We're in for them today.
We have some new developments this morning in the heartbreaking and disturbing story affecting one of our colleagues here at NBC. Today, co-anchor Savannah Guthrie's 84-year-old mom, Nancy, has been missing for nearly 2 days. Now authorities say she appears to be the victim of an abduction from her home in Arizona. Overnight, Savannah posted a message on Instagram that read simply, "Please pray," adding in the caption, "Bring her home." NBC News correspondent Liz Kreutz has the latest on the search from Tucson, Arizona.
The quiet Tucson foothills are the center of a massive multi-agency search for 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie.
We believe now, after we process that crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime scene, that we do in fact have a crime.
Nancy was last seen Saturday night when family members dropped her off at home around 9:45 p.m. But the next morning, police say, a call from a friend at Nancy's church. She never showed up for Sunday's service. Her children rushed to the house, spending nearly an hour searching the home and property. Unable to find her, they called 911 around noon.
We saw some things at the home that were concerning to us.
Officials saying the evidence inside the home was suspicious in nature, leading them to bring in homicide detectives.
This is not a dementia related. She is as sharp as a tack. The family wants everybody to know this isn't somebody who just wandered off.
The sheriff says they're searching with helicopters, drones, infrared systems, teams on the ground, and canine units. But it's a race against time. Nancy Guthrie has limited mobility and relies on daily medication that authorities say if she doesn't have in 24 hours can be fatal. Investigators say they have Nancy's cell phone, but are pleading for tips, asking neighbors to check their security cameras.
I'm going to go home and check my Ring camera, see if anything odd was going on.
They asked us to review our Ring, and unfortunately there wasn't anything.
The Today Show anchor thanking everyone for the thoughts, prayers, and messages of support. Right now, our focus remains on the safe return of our dear mom.
But it doesn't. Cute.
Savannah's mother has been a frequent guest on the Today Show.
My mom and I feel like we really click as friends, too.
It's just amazing what she's brought to my life.
The two often reminisce about their tight bond.
One of my favorite memories is we were driving home. There was a rainbow. My mom said, "Let's find the end of the rainbow." And I would say, "Turn right, turn right." We never found the end of the rainbow.
That's one of my favorite memories, too.
They talk about the tough times, too, like when Savannah's dad died when she was just 16.
We lost my dad suddenly and shockingly, and my mom was so strong and set aside her own grief in many ways just to be there and make sure that we could all move forward together.
For years, they stayed together at home, where Savannah lived with her mother during college.
We didn't have money to afford the dorm, and that was thing one. But the other was that my sister and I really felt like we should stick with my mom and not leave her alone.
When it came to getting a job, though, her mother pushed her to pursue her dreams.
She said, "If you can't leave me, then I didn't do my job right, Savannah." She just gave me permission to go, you know.
But the greatest gift Nancy gave to her,
faith and belief in God. It changed my whole life.
Today, she and her family are leaning on that faith, praying for Nancy's safe return.
Thanks, Liz, for that report.
Well, NBC Nightly News anchor Tom Yamas spoke with Pima County Sheriff Chris Nanos yesterday about new details in the search for Nancy Guthrie. Here's some of their emotional conversation.
We're all here to support the investigation, as well as her colleague Savannah and her family, and we're all hoping for a happy ending here. We know Nancy has limited mobility. Is it physically possible for her to have left the home on her own, or are you operating entirely on the premise that she was moved by someone else or abducted?
You know, from what the families told us and everything we've learned, she could not walk out of that home 50 yards. No, we believe she was taken out of the home against her will, and that's how this investigation is moving.
What would you say to someone who, if they're holding Nancy Guthrie right now, what's your message to them?
It's not just my message, it's the community's message, it is the family's message. Just call us, let her go, just call us. Family would tell you, there's no questions asked here. Look, if she's alive right now, her meds are vital. I can't stress that enough. You know, it's been better than 24 hours, and the family tells us if she doesn't have those meds, it can become fatal. Savannah is family to us. She's a big part of this community. Her family is devastated, the entire family. And, this just doesn't happen in Tucson.
I know you've been in contact with Savannah, who we know is in Tucson. What is your message to her and the Guthrie family and all the viewers who care so much about Savannah?
We're not going to give up. We'll get this. I'm blessed. I have a team that is, look, they'll solve this. I know they will.
If you have any information on Nancy Guthrie or her disappearance, however small, you can contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department through this tip line. It is on your screen there, or you can submit an anonymous tip through 888-CRIME.
Praying, all praying here. All right, in Washington, Congress is racing to end the partial government shutdown as the Trump administration delivers on a key demand from Democrats in Minnesota. In a major reversal, Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem says all officers in the field in Minneapolis will now be issued body cameras effective immediately. Cameras will go out to immigration agents nationwide once funding is available.
It all comes as members of the House return to D.C. to vote on a bill that would keep most government agencies open. It includes a 2-week stopgap to fund DHS while Democrats and the White House continue to debate reforms to the immigration operations. NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor standing by now with a closer look at those talks. But first, we want to bring in NBC's Alice Barr with the very latest. Alice, good morning.
Good morning, Vicki and Christine. The House is working to keep minimal disruptions in this partial shutdown by getting the government reopened today. But serious questions remain about finding common ground on the tense topic of immigration enforcement. The push is on today to pull the federal government out of a partial shutdown, with some federal workers furloughed once again. House Speaker Mike Johnson sounding confident he'll have the votes to change that.
We got FEMA and TSA and troop pay and everything else wrapped into this, so we've got to get the job done.
The House will be in order.
The House is set to vote today on a Senate-passed package that fully funds most of the government, but the Department of Homeland Security gets just 2 weeks of funding and a tall task in that time for lawmakers to negotiate reforms to immigration enforcement, with Democrats calling for dramatic changes amid unrest over the shooting deaths of Renee Good and Alex Preddy by federal officers in Minnesota.
The American people are correctly demanding accountability. The American people want to see the mask come off.
One demand already met as the Homeland Security Secretary announced body cameras for all federal immigration officers in Minneapolis, with plans to expand that nationwide as funding allows. President Trump backing the move.
They generally tend to be good for law enforcement because people can't lie about what's happening.
While also calling on both sides to pass the funding package with no changes and promising to work together to address issues raised. Though reaching agreement on the future of ICE won't be easy, with Republicans not backing down on their immigration crackdown.
If the Democrats want to throw out these ridiculous proposals that make it harder for ICE to do their job, that's just not going to happen.
The hope now to avoid a prolonged standoff. Several leading Democrats called the move to issue body cameras a good start, but they want that policy written and signed into law. Republican Lisa Murkowski agreed, citing an erosion of trust between Congress and the administration. Part of the challenge with a tight timeline to find reforms that 60 senators and the House can agree on. Christine and Vicki.
Alice, thank you. For more, let's bring in NBC News senior national political reporter Sahil Kapoor. So, Sahil, we're actually seeing a split in the way the Democratic leaders in the House and in the Senate are approaching these ICE reform talks with the White House. So why are they not presenting more of a united front? And does this suggest potentially anything about how the effort to end the shutdown could really play out?
That's right, Vicki. Notably different approaches we're seeing from the top two Democrats. We have Chuck Schumer, the top Senate Democrat, who negotiated this deal directly with the White House. He is in favor of it. And more than half of the Senate Democrats voted for it. It got more than 70 votes in the Senate. Now it's in the House, where the top Democrat In the House, Hakeem Jeffries is not saying how he's going to vote. His reluctance on this matter actually forced the vote from the House to move from yesterday, where it would have required a 2/3 majority. Speaker Johnson decided he didn't have enough Democrats to pull that off and decided to move it Tuesday. It's still on track to pass. But what Jeffries is responding to is a passionate contingent of Democrats in his caucus that does not want any funding for ICE, even on a stopgap basis, until their demands are met. And look, unlike Schumer, who's in his 70s, probably at the latter stages of his career, Jeffries is still much earlier on in his career. He's still in his mid-50s. He's looking to become Speaker of the House next year. And one thing he does want to do is carefully reflect the desires and the wishes of his conference. Nevertheless, the bill does appear to be on track to pass because in the House, you only need a majority. You don't need a supermajority like in the Senate.
Right. And so, Hill, let's talk about something President Trump said that's raising alarms over the right to vote. Yesterday on former Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino's podcast, the president said Republicans should take control over elections. I want to play some of that, and we'll talk about it on the other side.
The Republicans should say, we want to take over. We should take over the voting in at least 15 places. The Republicans ought to nationalize the voting.
Nationalize the voting. He went on to repeat the false claim that he won the 2020 election. The Constitution does not give the president any authority over the way federal elections are conducted. That is up to the states and, in some instances, Congress. So what more do we know about this effort?
Yeah, there are a couple of ways to look at this. The basic bargain that the Constitution sets out with elections is that states administer them, including the language being the times, place, and manner of holding elections. But the federal government does have the ability to step in and set some rules of the road. That's what Congress did, for instance, with the Voting Rights Act. But what Trump is calling for, a little bit unclear. The White House didn't cite anything further than passing, for instance, the SAVE Act, which requires proof of citizenship to vote. There's little doubt that he has at least, or that Congress has constitutional authority to do that. But we have to look at this in context of the president making fabricated claims of fraud in places where he loses elections. And, for instance, the FBI going after Fulton County in Georgia, which has been a target of President Trump. So what does he mean by nationalizing elections? Critics certainly have concerns that he's going to try to do something untoward here.
You know, Sahil, before we let you go, I do want to ask about some more of the fallout from the release of that additional trove of files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Yesterday, former President Clinton and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton agreed to testify in a House investigation into alleged crimes that were detailed in those files. But the Clintons themselves have not been accused of any wrongdoing. So there's a bit of a fight over whether or not they're going to testify. Do we know anything about why they were subpoenaed?
It's a big move here from the Clintons agreeing to testify. This comes under threat of contempt charges, where the chairman of this committee, the Republican Trump-aligned chairman James Comer, was essentially threatening to send them to the Justice Department to get prosecuted, to go behind bars. Now, the Clinton spokesperson had an interesting statement here. Let's show this. He says they negotiated in good faith. You did not. You being, he's speaking to James Comer here. They told you under oath what they know, but you don't care. But the former president and former Secretary of State will be there. They look forward to setting a precedent that applies to everyone, end quote. Now, the last part is notable because Donald Trump, when he was a former president, was also subpoenaed by Congress in the January 6th investigation. He refused to show up. There were no consequences because the general sense was, as a former president, Congress is not going to take that drastic a step. Now the Clintons are saying when Donald Trump is former president and when anybody else is a former president, they will now be expected to testify under oath when called upon by the House. So an important situation here on multiple different fronts. What's still unclear, guys, is the time and place of when the Clintons will testify.
All right, Sahil, thank you so much for that. All right, this morning, several states on the East Coast are still digging themselves out from the latest winter storm. The Carolinas are still cleaning up after record snowfall over the weekend. These two major recent storms and lengthy record-setting cold snap are now being blamed for more than 120 deaths nationwide. NBC News national correspondent Aaron Gilchrist takes a closer look at the impact down south.
Watch as a winter storm wreaks havoc along North Carolina's coast. Waves and strong winds snatching this home and 3 others into the ocean along the Outer Banks.
We just lost the third house.
Others left almost fully submerged. This bird's eye view showing snow blanketing the state's beaches. Blizzard conditions fueled by historic snowfall all across the state. Charlotte racking up 11 inches, its biggest snow total in 20 years. State officials say thousands of plows are making slow progress on day 3 of trying to clear roads.
If you've never driven in snow and you don't have a four-wheel drive vehicle, then you should most likely stay off the roads.
It's not just the Carolinas. The extreme cold and powerful wind taking down a massive tree in Georgia. Surprise snow flurries falling in Tampa.
We got frozen iguanas.
And icy temps around Miami, again leaving piles of iguanas temporarily frozen. A frigid Nashville still dealing with mass power outages from the storm 2 weekends ago. It could take another full week to get the lights and heat back on.
Watch it, watch it, watch it!
In Nebraska, new dashcam video showing the frightening moments when a car narrowly misses 2 state troopers last week. And in New York and Washington, snow still piled up along city streets. Back in North Carolina, residents are just trying to thaw out.
It was definitely a larger storm than I think people predicted.
All right, our thanks to Erin Gilchrist for that report.
Meteorologist Angie Lastman joins us now with more on what's ahead and what has now become a February freeze. Angie, say it ain't so.
I'm sorry. I wish I could give you guys some better news. There are some warm spots across the country, but they're just really not in place for folks across the east. We've still got 40 million people under these cold weather alerts. It looks slim, but much of Florida and much of North Carolina are included in this here as we get kind of another day of bitter cold underway. We've got 20 degrees for what it feels like in Wilmington, 23 degrees in Melbourne. We've got 30 for what it feels like in Atlanta, a wind chill of just 10 in Chicago, even chillier across the northern plains with single-digit wind chill values. And across the state of Florida, we're once again looking at many record low temperatures this morning with 20s and 30s for the actual temperatures and feeling much chillier than that in a lot of spots. So we keep the cold going this morning. You're going to want the extra layers if you live across the east. Meanwhile, across the west, mild conditions. We're running above normal basically from the Rockies west, 74 degrees in Las Vegas. We've got mid-60s in Dallas. We've started to thaw out for folks there. And even across the Gulf Coast, temperatures return to the 70s for Houston. Not so much across the Great Lakes. It's just 19 for Minneapolis for your high today, 30 for Indianapolis. And then up and down the East Coast, we're running a little below normal, so 5 to maybe 10 degrees below where we should be for this time of year. That puts us into the 40s for places like Norfolk. And really that same pattern continues tomorrow. So still the kind of split temperatures, warm across the west, chillier across the east. And then we start to get this next kind of batch of cold air that filters in as we look way ahead to the weekend in places like Green Bay. So we go from above freezing on Friday in Green Bay to 21 degrees for your high. New York City ends up into those high 20s both Thursday and Friday and then dips back down to just the teens on Saturday. We've got the 30s and 40s on tap as well for Richmond. So kind of a bit of a roller coaster ride when it comes to those temperatures in some spots. Meanwhile, we've got a little bit of light snow to talk about across parts of the Ohio Valley and the Appalachians. 6 million people included in these winter alerts as we gear up for this next storm system to kind of slide across the eastern half of the country. Most of us across the south are going to see rain. That'll keep us quite damp through the day today, but a bit of snow across the Ohio Valley and central Appalachians possible as that slides farther to the east tomorrow. More of that snow for the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Smoky Mountains, and then again the showers across the southeast coast and Florida. We'll see some of that as well. Not all that impressive. I think those higher elevations will pick up a little more through Wednesday when it comes to our snowfall, maybe 2-3 inches, but that's max what we'll get. It does go all the way out to the coast where you could pick up maybe an inch or so for Richmond and Norfolk, but otherwise we'll mainly be looking at some substantial rain in some spots across the southeast. So about a half an inch, maybe an inch for some of those higher amounts across this region, and that'll go all the way through Wednesday, guys, tomorrow. So a bit of a mixed bag. We've got warm temperatures across the west, chilly temperatures across the east, and rain and snow all to talk about in the next couple of days.
A little bit of everything to start February.
Yes. Is that going to be enough rain to wash away all the snow that the folks in the south got?
Not so much. I mean, it'll help. It'll help the thaw. Of course, those temperatures will start to get above freezing in some of those spots, and that'll help. But yeah, we in New York City, I know there's been a lot of complaints. Those mountains of snow will continue at least for the extended period.
All right, Angie Lastman, thank you so much.
All right, in overseas news, Gaza's health ministry warning that thousands of Palestinian patients could die while waiting to be evacuated through the Rafah border crossing to Egypt for medical care. Israel reopened the border yesterday for the first time in months. It came amid mounting global pressure to allow more aid into the devastated enclave after it was reduced to rubble by Israel's 2-year war on the Strip.
But Gaza's interior ministry says only 8 people were allowed to leave the enclave on Monday, 5 of whom were critically ill patients, and only 12 Palestinians were allowed to return to Gaza. Local health officials are saying about 20,000 people actually need to be evacuated for medical care.
NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now from Tel Aviv. So, Matt, why have so few people been allowed in and out of Gaza through that Rafah crossing? Is it likely there could be more today?
That's the thinking. And there are supposedly, according to Palestinian health officials, according to officials in the northern part of the Sinai Peninsula in Egypt, near the Rafah crossing, there are more desperately ill patients suffering from injuries who are trying to get out of the Gaza Strip. Some others who are trying to get into the Gaza Strip. Many of them have already entered the process, have entered the border crossing, and are waiting to be processed. But this is, as you mentioned, this is a crucial question because, you know, those numbers that you just recited, those are clearly well short of the 50 people that are expected to cross either way. The idea is here, 50 people per day are supposed to be able to leave Gaza, 50 more are supposed to be able to enter Gaza. And as you can tell from what you just said, there are mostly the priority now is those who are suffering from injuries or disease, those who need critical medical care. Now, you asked whether or not we're going to see more today. Everything about this has been basically playing by ear, but until now, we haven't seen any major incidents at the border. We haven't seen any problems. It looks as though maybe with these baby steps that the Israelis are taking, there is a very, very strenuous list of conditions that all of these people who are coming and going have to meet. Maybe this could build confidence and allow for operations at this border crossing to expand. Maybe in the future, it might even allow for much needed aid to enter the Gaza Strip. But as of now, as you saw, this is just pedestrians, and almost all of them, either people who are suffering from disease or injuries and their companions.
Matt, despite the return of all the hostages, Israel has still been bombing Gaza, and we saw that dozens of people were killed in an Israeli attack just over the weekend. Yesterday, health officials said that a 3-year-old boy was among 4 people who were killed in another strike. Why are we still seeing these attacks given this ceasefire?
Well, actually, you can kind of see this everywhere when you look around the map of Israel. Ceasefires that are in place with Israel continuing to attack targets that they say are, well, in the case of Gaza, Hamas targets, or people who have violated the ceasefire, those who they say have approached the so-called yellow line to which the Israelis withdrew as part of the terms of that ceasefire deal. Now, you know, we're still seeing these firings. The Palestinians are saying that these are violations of the ceasefire. The Israelis are saying that they're simply firing at Hamas targets that they say are gearing up for an attack or that have already violated the ceasefire. So we're hearing recriminations from both sides. But the fact is that over the past couple of months, ever since the ceasefire went into place, hundreds of Palestinians have been killed by Israeli strikes from artillery or airstrikes just over the past couple of months. We're seeing that as well in Lebanon, where there's also a more than a year-long ceasefire there that sort of ended the fighting, but where Israel is still continuing to pound what they say are Hezbollah targets and what they say are violations of that ceasefire deal. So everywhere, we're still seeing just a tenuous kind of ceasefire, not the kind that's necessarily going to last. But in the Gaza Strip, we're moving from phase 1 to phase 2 of that ceasefire deal, a more permanent kind of peace. But peace isn't a word that's used very often here.
And Matt, we understand President Trump's top Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, is meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu today. What is the purpose of that meeting, and what are we expecting?
That's right, Netanyahu and some other top officials. Well, one of the interesting things is that it looks like Jared Kushner, the president's son-in-law, is not going to be at these meetings, isn't going to be at these on these trips. He's one of the main envoys and one of the authors of this ceasefire deal in the Gaza Strip. It looks as though, according to Israeli press reports, that Witkoff's job on this trip is to kind of hear out the Israelis before he attends meetings with the Iranians on Friday. This has been reported from senior officials in the administration that there will be meetings between U.S. representatives and the Iranians in Istanbul on Friday to talk about potentially trying to forestall some sort of American attack. President Trump has made clear that he wants 3 different goals from this. He wants to see an end to the nuclear program by the Iranians. He wants to see an end to their funding of proxy groups, and he wants to see them stopping killing protesters in the streets. Now, it's unclear what could possibly make the president back down from his threats. There's an enormous amount of hardware, American hardware, in the region right now, waiting for the president's word to attack Iran. We don't know what that attack would look like, what it would necessarily target. We don't know what the president necessarily wants from these negotiations. We do know that the Iranians seem to be receptive to entering some sort of negotiation, and that is what Steve Witkoff is going to be talking about with the Israelis. The Israelis are major stakeholders in whatever the president decides to do next. But so far, over the past couple of months, despite Netanyahu's very, very reverential posture towards the president, it looks as though it's Netanyahu and Israeli leaders who are trying to talk the Americans down, trying to keep them from attacking Iran in a way that they say could start a region-wide war.
All right, Matt Bradley, thank you so much from Tel Aviv this morning.
Well, a major diplomatic initiative could be taking shape in another long simmering confrontation in the Middle East. Sources tell NBC News that the U.S. and Iran, as Matt was talking about, may hold that face-to-face summit in Istanbul as early as this Friday. It is part of a larger push to de-escalate tensions in the region. NBC News chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel has the very latest from Tehran.
As American warships arrive in the region, the White House and Iran have agreed to meet for rare face-to-face talks to avoid a war, according to diplomats. Iran appears to be looking for a way to de-escalate as it faces the threat of American and Israeli military action and a huge wave of domestic unrest.
This is an extraordinarily tense time in Iran right now. After the mass demonstrations, the government's crackdown, and nearly total blackout of the internet, the government is now trying to show strength, that it is fully in control once again of the streets. And in propaganda posters that have gone up all across town, the government is also sending a clear message that if there is another war, Israel and the United States will be receiving coffins.
But two Iranian officials told NBC News they hope it won't come to that Iran wants a deal, even expressing optimism about reaching one if the goal is limited to preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.